Greetings, Lord, and welcome back to the Lapis Kingdom. I am the Blue Regent, and today we're going to be figuring out the plan for the start of essentially what is kind of like a military compound for the village. And the main focus is going to be translating the barracks from Warcraft Orcs and Humans into kind of a barracks fortress combo that's going to be essentially defending the village. So if you're ready, grab your pen, grab your workbook, and let's get started. So the first big project for today's planning is going to be to grind down this hill that's in the distance back here. And the main reason is that's where I want the barracks to sit. I kind of want the barracks for Azeroth to be a little bit more like a fortress than just, what is this? Okay. Than just a building that soldiers get trained. And so I kind of want this to sit in a pretty prominent location, which is up here, but obviously this is a little bit too high and not quite big enough. And so I'm going to grind this down a little bit, and then it's going to give us kind of a view of this whole bay, and also is going to put it in a position to where, if you imagine like crossbowmen can fire down onto people trying to like land on the shore. After we get the barracks planned out, I think this little, it's kind of a berm, I guess, is going to be the location for the stables. And I want the stables to sit down here, kind of in this clearing, so that any knights that are stationed in this fortress up here, you know, this is where their horses are going to be taken care of and everything. And there's plenty of space right here to imagine that the horses can kind of like just wander around and graze and everything when they're not being, you know, ridden on patrols and stuff. And so this area is going to be, you know, think I'm going to have the stables sit up here on the slightly higher spot. And then all of this area down here is just going to be like grazing pasture for the horses. This area over here might be kind of like a drilling field, possibly. If you consider like the fortress is going to sit up there, the stables are going to sit over here. This might be an area for them to just kind of like practice getting into formation and marching and all of that kind of stuff. So this whole area is going to end up turning into kind of like a little military complex in this region of the village. So one of my favorite things about preparing a new area for a project is all of the resources that I get. I've been working my way down the hill, chopping down the trees as I go. I can show you. So I've chopped down basically everything at the top, and I'm about halfway down this hill now. And look at all this wood I've got. 2 stacks of oak. Not as much birch, but there isn't as much birch over here. But it takes a decent amount of time at the redstone tree generator to get the same amount of oak. And all I'm doing is just kind of making forward progress on getting this area ready to go. So I have the whole hill cleared off as far as trees go, and I've basically decided that this level right here is going to be where I grind all of the dirt and any cobblestone in there down, with the intention of basically flattening it out to have a big open space to fit the barracks slash fortress. Thankfully, due to having enchanted diamond stuff, this isn't going to take anywhere close to as long as projects like the quarry, or even setting up the area for the blacksmith. And again, having access to all this dirt is going to be super useful in the long run, because as our territory grows, more terraforming is going to have to happen, which means we're actually going to have to build some stuff up. And we're also going to have to like create new rivers, fill in old rivers, and eventually mountain range building is going to have to happen. And so having as many extra resources we can early on is going to be much more helpful in the long run. So the top of this hill has been shaved off, and it took quite a bit of time, as you can see by my pickaxe. It's pretty beat up, and that's even with doing some grinding at the zombie spawner to repair it. However, now we have this huge flat space to work with when it comes to working on this barracks slash fortress building that we're going to be making. Now, just like the mage tower, I want this to hang off of the cliffs a little bit. Partially because I kind of want there to be a little bit of the notion that possibly some of it goes down into this hill, and maybe those are kind of like substructures and basements and that kind of stuff. So let's see here. How big do I want this to be? This is a pretty big space to work with. And I think I want to start here. Let's see how far across this is. If I counted correctly, this is 31 across. And we come to about here. And this portion over here comes to here. So let's see where we go if we go that direction. Okay, so this is where 31 brings us over here. So it's kind of, it hangs over a little bit too much. Let me double count that. This is 31. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this one. I'll grab that in a second. And let me double check that this is 31. So this is 31. Okay, I'm going to see what 31 looks like in this direction. Okay, so this is where it puts me on this corner for 31. So if we did a 31 by 31 square, it's a little big. However, maybe we make this the outermost boundary of what we're trying to build here. So if we made the towers that are on the outside, 1, 2, 3, like grab this rose. So if these were the towers, so this is the outermost portion of the fortress. So we'll do the same thing on this side. And I want to see how much that pulls it in. It's not going to be by a lot. That basically gives us a tower that goes all the way down to the beach. And do I want that? Okay, well, let's do the other two corners and see ultimately what that sets us up as. So I like where this tower sits. I like where this tower sits. I like where that tower back there sits. I don't like where this one sits. Look at this nonsense. Do I have milk on me? I don't. Every time they show up, it's always when I'm building or planning something. I have armor on. I could fight them. I could fight them and I would win. Nah, I don't care. I'm not concerned about it. Keep just go ahead and keep swimming across that bay, I guess. You're welcome to. What do I do about this tower? We'll work with it. Okay, so we'll make it work. If this is now how we're going to do this. So the outermost wall of each tower is in that 31 by 31. Let's plan for our wall to sit there. Okay, so roughly here is the footprint of the barracks. This is a pretty good size. And these towers are basically going to be just big enough for one or two of them to have a spiral staircase in it to get up to what we'll call a second story, but it's essentially just the roof. It's kind of hard to tell how big this building is in comparison to everything else because everything's scale is super wonky as far as the game art goes. However, you know, I think this is a pretty good size. If you consider the idea that this is part of more of a complex, you know, this is like the big fortress. Ultimately, we'll have stables down there and like a drill yard over here. Perhaps even you know, this could be... Let's see here. This really isn't the worst thing in the world. If I was going to say that this was officially going to be Stormwind's Harbor, what I would do is I would put the military elements of its harbor at the foot of this. Essentially, this fortress would be guarding maybe this bay in here would be where all of its military vessels come out of, and possibly that bay over there is where more of the commercial stuff comes out of. I could argue this having like a really long, weird tower, and perhaps even this tower could be a way to get down to like the military port. Okay, so that juts out pretty far, but not as far as I thought it did. And so even if you came out another block or two down here at the base to make it look thicker, like more bolstered because of its height, it still wouldn't go all the way into the water. And so like I was saying, if this was like a military wharf down here, this could be like a way that you could get from like the military wharf up to the barracks slash fortress, and maybe that's even like a way that maybe even like the admiral or the captain or whatever, maybe their office and the general's office would both be in this tower, because like they could pass information back and forth to each other pretty easily. So, you know, if we're thinking about it like that, this actually works perfectly here. So yeah, I'm glad that we pulled it in some, and this tower works pretty great. Sometimes you just really have to draw it out and see where stuff lands before you make a final decision. I was this close to scrapping it, but I like that there. Now, if it came out to like here, it would come out too far, because then you'd have to start coming down deep into the water for your like base structure, which would, I mean, it's possible in Minecraft. Anything's possible in Minecraft. But if you want kind of like a story and a narrative, you'd have to think that somebody would have to engineer that. And so I think this is an acceptable distance to come out this close to the water. This tower overhangs, but it overhangs just a little bit, and it's really just in this corner. So I think that's, you know, I think that's, again, really acceptable. If I had decided that I wanted to turn this into river, then maybe that could be problematic. But just leaving this the way it is, I think it's fine. Now the next question I have for myself is this where I want this wall to sit? Directly in the middle. It kind of splits this circle into quarters. And I could have the tower seem more prominent if I pulled this back one more, so that the wall sat on this inner part here and didn't split the circle in half. Let's see, how can we settle this? Okay, so I know what we'll do. Do I have enough stone? We'll use wool. So let's see here. Let's do this wall to the middle. Let's do this wall. Let's pull it in one more. There's our friends again. So let's deal with these guys, because I'm tired of them sneaking around. Let's see if I can pull off them knocking off the banner bearer. Haha, that helped. Ha 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 ha. Now I don't have to worry about the curse. Perfect. If you're ever out and you don't have milk with you, another way you can deal with the bad omen is to just let them kill the one with the banner, and then you don't have to worry about it. I think I prefer it being pulled in one more. And part of the reason is, if this were a fortress, you could have, in theory, like a murder hole or like an archer position, aiming into this area on both sides. So as people were trying to break down the gate, you'd have that firing down in both directions. And I know I could put one here, but it's a little bit harder to pull off with the blocks. In theory, I could do like a stair and then an upside down stair, and then it just looks like a nice little arrow slit. So I think I like this pulled in one more versus this. Plus also what'll end up happening is, like, this will be a door, right? And if this is all closed in on the inside, this doesn't necessarily need doors. It's just a doorway. I think that's how I want to do that. Okay, so I've pulled this wall in on every side. And I have to say, figuring this all out on camera has been a lot of fun. A lot of the times what I've done in the past is I roughly figure out the footprint of what I want to build, and then I play around off camera in creative mode to see what I want to do with it from there. And I end up feeling like what happens is I don't spend enough time talking about what's going to happen next. And it ends up being kind of disjointed for me, and it probably ends up being a little disjointed for you too. But doing this kind of like trial and error, figuring out how stuff works and where it's going to fit on camera, it ends up being a little bit more streamlined for me, and it makes me feel like I'm thinking about it in one kind of like continuous system versus record what I'm trying to think about and then try to replicate that headspace again off camera. And that ends up making it feel kind of hard, and I kind of struggle with trying to get back into that headspace. And then if a couple of days go by and I haven't worked on it on the channel since I've worked on it in creative mode, then I have to get into that headspace again for a third time, really. And stuff kind of gets a little disjointed. And so I feel like doing this all on camera has been much more beneficial. So let's see. While we're, if we're in the mode of building up the foundation and kind of seeing where everything fits, let's keep working on it. If this episode being different than the other planning episodes, if you're not really feeling this, let me know in the comments. And, I can go back to, here's the footprint, and I'll figure it out off camera, and then you'll see the final product of that. But if you like seeing this more of a figure it out in real time system, please let me know. Let me know in the comments, because I would be more than happy to continue it like this, because I'm finding that I'm benefiting from it. And if you're kind of building along at home, it might be helpful for you too to kind of see more of my thought process as the whys of what's getting put where, and not just where everything's being put. These aren't really tutorials, but if you get in someone's headspace even just a little bit, as far as, okay, but why did they do that like that, then that can be really helpful when it comes to trying to replicate what they did. That's not where that goes. So that gets us back into why am I building what I'm building? And, that's my inspiration for a lot of stuff. And that's my inspiration even when I play the way I normally play, which is mostly just kind of like a Stardew Valley, little farming sim. I still, if I'm going to be doing a lot of like iron mining and stuff, I want there to be a little building to do all my smelting in. And I want there to be a building to do all of my like blacksmithing in and enchanting in and stuff, if I happen to do any of that. And so, that kind of helps keep me motivated, and it also helps keep my world cohesive. So, like I said, if watching me think out loud in air quotes real time as I try to figure out how all this is going to be set up. If you like that better, you know, this can be more of the format from here on out as far as the planning videos go. Now let's figure out where would the door go on here. So this is 17. So the middle is going to be 9. 9. And I think I want this door to be 3 wide. So let's see if we can figure out the way down. Luckily, Minecraft already has kind of set us up with one. Remove this to here. Like this kind of thing, and then like this, and then maybe like this, and so let's see here. This can have, this could be like a little wall. Like this. And then let's say maybe this gets lowered. Maybe this gets lowered. Yeah. It's kind of weird looking right now, but this could basically just be, if you think, just to make this a little more obvious for myself. Okay, so yeah, so if you think a winding walkway to get up here, and the fact that it's winding is kind of a pain. However, that would be the thought process. So yeah, this would actually be probably so that would be the thought process behind this, right? You know, if this, we're gonna do a little imagination time. Let's pretend the easiest way to get to this village. Look at these fools. Ha! Ha ha! Look at that. 2 crossbows. I'm about to go grab those. But let's pretend that the easiest way to get into this village is through this harbor. Okay, so I would want a fortress guarding the harbor. So let's say that that's what this building is. One of the things that makes this fortress so effective is the way that you enter it is you basically have to go through the village. And so let's say, you know, you bring a big force, it's a sizable force to assault this place. You have this fortress fighting you with ranged weapons the entire time. And I'm going to go grab those before they despawn. So, you know, let's say you land here. Okay, so your troops land, you've made it onto the harbor, and the entire time you're assaulting the harbor, they're firing arrows at you, maybe catapult shot, and sure, we could, in theory, continue to push through into the village. However, this entire time, your supplies and your reinforcements and any support you have is going to continue to get barraged from this fortress up here. So obviously the goal is to take the fortress. Well, if the only way that you can take the fortress is to work your way through here while being shot at by the fortress the entire time, and let's say there's a bridge. So there's a bridge that comes across here. So you work your way across the bridge, still getting shot at by the fortress. Work your way into these military grounds, still getting shot at by the fortress, and fighting, and probably fighting, you know, like hit and run troops. Maybe the knights and light cavalry are attacking you the entire time, and you finally get to the entrance. But to get to the actual fortress, you then have to work your way up this winding, narrow path. So siege weapons are kind of out of the question. The entire time they're still shooting at you. You know, you get all the way up to here, they're still shooting at you, they're still shooting at you. You finally get to the gate, they're still shooting at you, and somehow you have to get in here. That's a hard fight. That's a really hard fight. And so having this entrance way back here and kind of annoying would make day-to-day irritating, for sure. However, who it would really make life difficult for is anyone attacking this place. And that's kind of the goal of this kind of stuff. If you ever look at, so where I live in Michigan, I live in the United States, and there is a place called Mackinac Island, and they have like a Revolution War of 1812 era fort there. And the pathway to get up to the front gate of the fort is this extremely steep, and it doubles back on itself 2 or 3 times path to get all the way up to the front gates. And the entire time, if you were to assault that, the entire time you'd have people shooting at you. And so that right there is a pretty big deterrent for attacking a fortress like that or like this. So that's kind of the idea behind this entrance here. I know what you might be saying. Sure, Blue Regent, but what about the entire rest of this coastline and all of that over there? Well, let's assume that maybe once the rest of this military complex gets built up, there might be a small wall all the way around that. And so there might not necessarily be hospitable landing or entranceway the entire way. Or maybe if this all becomes military wharf in here, there might be a low wall between where the military wharf is and up into the military complex. So, you know, if this harbor is all military, you know, there may be a city wall or a village wall over there at some point, and there may be another wall cutting off from where the harbor ends and this, you know, drill area, cavalry pasture area starts. So that's more ways that you would work defenses into this, even if you have this lower lane area over here. The very last thing that we're going to do today is there's a couple things to take off of here. So this can go, and this can go, and this, and this. And we're going to add to the task board the barracks. We're starting to whittle things down that are left to work on for the village. And in fact, the Mage Tower is going to be worked on next building episode. And the Minecraft farm is going to be coming soon. So that means that we are getting close to our end of list. We are getting close to the end of the list of tasks to do for our initial village, which means that we really are going to have to start coming up with ideas for tasks to accomplish to re-unlock this village. So again, if you have any ideas that you would like to have considered for that, definitely let me know in the comments. That is going to be it for today. I look forward to seeing you next time in the Lapis Kingdom. Bye!